Not seeing any, we will turn it over to Stephen to start the presentation for the evening. We're almost there.
All right. Thank you, Nick, and as Nick said, welcome everyone. Hope it's some good material for you all to go over tonight. What we'll be talking about is the visioning statement, and just we have the whole. In the title here, we have the name of the planning sector and suburban center that the visioning statement is applied to. But as we look at it, with the work you've all done in the past to identify important assets throughout Lorton, we're looking at it as a suburban center to the whole Lower Potomac planning district. So all of Lorton, this area is the suburban center. It's identified as a place where development, where most of the development happens in the Lower Potomac. And if you when you look at the maps we'll look at later, the suburban centers are identified as activity centers, in the comprehensive plan. So the centers where things happen. So just want to go through a little history of what you all have done to get us here tonight. And you'll remember back in the summer of 2019, you all initiated the community survey. You received a lot of good feedback from the community about lifestyle choices, goals, priorities for future development, and things of that nature. And then that was what you built the presentations and the information that you compiled on existing conditions and significant assets in the area when you presented them to the community at an open house in October of 2019. And then from November 2019 to February, you held meetings, and those meetings led to the adoption of the Lorton Visioning Guiding Principles that we hope you'll also see are heavily reflected in the visioning statement that you'll be looking at tonight. From October 2020 to January 2021, after there was a brief break and due to the COVID pandemic, the task force reconvened, and the work that you did then led to the Board of Supervisors authorization of the planning study for the Lorton Vision Plan Amendment. So then in April of 2021, from April of 2021 through September 2021, you held more meetings, and that was when staff from various agencies came to talk to you about a whole range of policy-related items like health and all planning, environmental. There was also transportation, of course, the big thing. A lot of different things that staff came to you to talk to you about. And then in October of 2021, the first team of consultants were hired, and they performed some research and analysis, and also did some mapping of the existing conditions. They kind of changed and updated some of the maps that you all have worked with staff to do at that time. And they worked on the project until last May. And when they were working with us in January 2022, we held a community workshop. And then from the winter to the spring, you all had a second community survey where you started asking about some of the decisions that were being made, some of the ideas that were coming forward through all the other task force work, like information and feedback on the opportunity sites that you all had originally identified and things of that nature. And then there was a break, of course, at the last meeting with the consultants, and then we came back last month, kind of reconvene again and start talking about the work that we're going to be doing with these next consultants at Renaissance Planning and SB Friedman, who are going to help us kind of take this thing home. So that's where we are now. We're kind of another jumping off point where we working on a community visioning statement, and the visioning statement is trying to capture the things that you all can do as a community to shape what happens from a planning standpoint throughout the suburban center. And the work that the consultants are doing now kind of lines up with this, because what they've started doing is they've started identifying different factors that influence change. They're looking at the age of structures throughout the area, the land value to building value ratio for land throughout the areas. Basically, that means in cases where the land value is much greater than the building values, and which indicates that the land isn't being used, I guess, to its best potential in a lot of cases. And they've also looked at the floor area ratio throughout most of the area, even at the opportunity sites and commercial centers that you all identified. The floor area ratio in the current plan is recommended as less than 0.30 FAR.
Sorry, what does that mean?
The floor area ratio is the amount of gross square footage in a building, the amount of gross square footage in the building forms to the amount of land and so on. So if you got a 3,000 square foot building on a 10,000 square foot size. Yes. The other thing they look at is public ownership. You know, the amount of land that's owned by the county and other public entities that, you know, where we may be able to look at nearer term solutions to kind of change the trajectory of planning in the suburban center.
Are you sure about that? The one, actually I was talking to you about it in a different context. The, pretty much smack dab in the middle. Oh, it is. I'm confused.
Sorry. But it's good to flip back to this too, because one of the things we want to remind you of too, like when you look at this map, you'll notice that some areas are affected by, some of these areas are actually affected by two or even all of these different factors. So, you know, the more things that a property may have lined up against it, you know, per se, you know, the more potential there may be for change. So what we're trying to do in the vision statement is to make sure that make sure that your vision and the work that you've done in the visioning process puts a lot of what happens if these changes happen into the hands of you as the community. So that's where we're kind of trying to drive the plan. So
if you go back one more, just for a second. So in the two center maps, you have some properties that you're identifying properties that go all the way up to Old Culture Road. And I do think that we need to be careful not to undo the current comprehensive plan that talks about a transition area between Old Colchester Road and the industrial further west of it. That's intended to, it's demonstrated in zoning, and there's language in the comprehensive plan for that. It's basically just the frontage lots on Old Colchester Road, but on that when you are carried all the way over to Old Colchester Road, some of those instances.
I think when you go to look at the final map that we'll look, one of the later maps that we look at, I think they intentionally took some of that land that may be looked at for protection out of it because of those reasons. And when it comes to the comprehensive plan, in those situations, of course, those will be areas that we'll continue to look at.
It's not a lot of land, it's a couple hundred feet. So it's not like you're giving a major development.
And some of the changes I think that they're considering too won't really be, it won't necessarily be changes to commercial or changing the commercial use. So some of these things will continue, you know, your vision is your vision, and you can identify if you want to call those lands that are to be protected out. You know. So what you're saying?
All I'm saying is we just want to make sure we don't undo the language in the comprehensive plan for those buffers and the preservation.
Exactly. And if there's anything you want to strengthen in regards to the plans, those changes.
It's reasonably strong as long as it's.
So next, of course, these are some of the updates that they're doing to the maps and the task force is working staff to create for area-wide assets. And we also hope and, we think that the vision that the vision statement that you'll be looking at draws on the area-wide assets and looks to what the suburban center as an area for development, how you can tie those different assets back into the suburban center. So, improved access through their themes that can be applied.
These are the ovals that are on the environmental corridors and sensitive area map. And there are two ovals right off of the interchange with Lorton Road and 95. Are those specifically more sensitive environmental areas, or, because I remember us having the discussion about that one, right adjacent to it as highly sensitive, so.
Yeah, those circles are where the county has conservation easements on those properties. So those are the areas that are specifically written in, in deed documents that those are conservation easements to serve.
Is there any way to undo that? Because I just look at, the one up in the RPA and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm in complete support of that. But the one further to the south, that's almost like a prime piece of the corner there. The one. Those right around that intersection are high. They're definitely not RPA.
Those have to be questions that we would have to, that the county attorney would have to get involved in as far as undoing conservation easements. But I know the one to the north had to be put in place because there was some offsite work that the county created a conservation easement, kind of offset some of the.
So I assume they were all offsets because again, the only one that's justified is the northern one. South is just the big range.
There are also sensitive soils in that area as well. So,
Christine, you're really quiet, so we can hear.
That would be something that the committee wants to consider.
I think it's in the county.
I think we maybe need to kind of reiterate.
Want me to English translate?
What Christine is saying that, consider, when you look at the division, consider anything on the table. And when it really comes to getting into the policy changes or zoning changes or anything else like that relates to a piece of land, that's when we get the county attorney involved. Is that correct?
Just because if there's something that the committee thinks should be considered, then consider.
Well,
I think we're looking at like this, there's just not a lot of land, and you have something in the center, and it's a fine piece on Lorton Road.
Yes.
And the corridor that we've kind of really identified is the Silverbird Road to Route 1 along Lorton Road, and you have a vacant parcel in there. And this is kind of a budding Amtrak, right?
Yeah.
This is mostly the county owned parcel that sits in there. It's, we looked at it, I think, for the police station, the animal shelter at one point. It was mixed up with that, but it is prime. It's right in the heart, in the center. It's owned by county, right?
I think there's two planning commissioners here that have probably heard things in other places. We'll consider these things. It's not up to.
Your vision is our vision.
Right. So have you had within the county, other county owned properties that are in environmentally sensitive areas being converted to homes?
Yeah.
Well, but in this particular instance, it's not environmentally sensitive.
Right.
It was just used as a credit.
Right.
For something somewhere.
That's what the circle. There is a rare magnolia bog. It's a globally rare area within that area. It's owned by the county too. So we kind of talked about two different parts of
The
it.
one to the north. Hey, I'm all on board. It's the one to the south. So that it's actually mixed or something.
I just asked staff to review and research, and you can also check the legal opinions that might go along with having to try and influence.
We'll definitely.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we'll take it to consultants too. We'll talk to them. take a look at all the parcels.
Yeah, and you see they mapped it. They didn't take that out of consideration when they mapped the areas as potential changes. So, you know, we're looking at it holistically. So, one of these maps you've also seen in the packages that the consultants provided, and one of the things that we'll be talking to you about when they come back next month is what they're learning about Lorton and in relationship to the market analysis that they're doing, and the regional importance of Lorton, and you know, as a player, as the whole region faces changes, you know, that are coming up. So that'll be something that they'll talk to you about next month. But just wanted to show you these maps because they were in the packet that you received last week.
Stephen, what is this unified Lorton built on existing assets?
What they're looking at, we've heard the task force and also members of the community speak a lot about about an east and west Lorton. And when you look at that central area that's right around the areas that we're looking at for as a potential, the areas you could consider for a potential core, that comes almost right in the middle of east and west Lorton. So looking at this as an area where it could be a gathering place. It could be a place where people who go to the workhouse or any of the parks around the region come back and enjoy themselves before they leave the area. Also a place in the center of a bunch of residents. You know, and when you think about the task force, everyone on the task force kind of lives all around within those circles, and then south as well. And you know, the area where the study is looking as a potential core, that's like in the center of that circle that they provide. So it's almost like the suburban center was almost put in the perfect place. So getting into, I guess, trying to wrap up the staff part. If you look at the map on the left-hand side, you'll remember that when you all worked together to identify opportunity sites, I think there were 3 that you were looking at. There were 3 commercial shopping centers. And they've started to also add places in between there as activity nodes that you can, you know, that are also good ideas, good starting points where people gather, kind of like where we are tonight at the community center. That's been added as a node of activity. And these are just places where, as change happens all around Lorton, these may be places that you want to consider doing some of the things that are coming out of the vision. Placemaking, and you know, improve connectivity to these places, things of that nature, things that get people interested into coming here, and also, you know, things that may happen around them that, you know, to have more people living around them with closer access, but also have more people coming from all around those areas defined by those circles that you were just talking about, Tim. And then on the right-hand side is the map that identifies where the suburban center is. When you look at this map, it's the concept of future development. All the areas that are shaded, different colors, they relate back to the comprehensive plan as far as the types of activities that have taken place, the types of development that have taken place there, in the settlements that have taken place in these different places. And then when you look at the suburban centers outlined in purple, again, those and community business centers and transit station areas, industrial areas, large institutional land that have all been mapped. The lands that are other than suburban neighborhoods and low density residential areas. Those are all areas where the county considers denser and more diverse types of land uses, mixed uses. You know, the suburban centers are defined by the comprehensive plan as employment centers, but the comprehensive plan also identifies that suburban centers are transitioning to include a lot more mixes of uses. So
Is that bottom one on the left diagram?
that's where we are. Oh, you mean on the bottom on the left? I'm sorry.
Yeah, where is that? That's like that yacht center or whatever, at the end of.
That's at the outlet.
It's on they're seeing where the Five Guys, like, headquarters is. All the way above the Route 1.
Bernacchi Road, Carlos.
Okay, so just cross it.
You're talking about the yellow circle in the left picture, right? Really bottom. Yeah, it's like the Five Guys headquarters. They're right on the river, right before the bridge, basically. There's a commercial center there. It's called the I-95 Business Center. It's not something generally like we go down to.
There's a restaurant that changes hands on something,
Right, yeah, it's a Peruvian place now, I believe.
That's good, ratings.
Sorry, I was too far east.
And then the darker orange dots, those are gateways. Those are what the consultants are identifying as gateways. Of course, you have the Amtrak auto train in the middle, and then at the very top to the north, you have BRE. Those, of course, national and regional gateways for people who are coming into Lorton. And you can see how they relate to the rest of the circles where the activity nodes are. Then at the farther south is the area that you all were just talking about. That's the gateway into, that's where Route 1 comes across the Aquapond, coming out of Woodbridge. And we talked about in the past, everything that's going on at Woodbridge. There's a North Woodbridge Town Center that's going on right there, right across the Aquapond. So they've identified this as an important gateway. And we're looking at now, we've gone from looking at 3 opportunity sites. Now you see here there are five activity nodes identified, and there may also be some intermediate areas where activity may be appropriate in between those. So you're kind of looking at a whole community network of activity.
What kind of risk and delivery, on there, on the Silverbird?
The reason they've identified these is because the plan amendment is specific to the suburban center. So they're identifying activity nodes in the suburban center on these maps because we aren't changing the plan for those areas. But when you go back to the plan where you look at area-wide assets, that's where those come into play. And that's where this central area of connection fits in between all the parks, Liberty, Workhouse, and everything else.
This might be a very novice question, but I'll ask it anyway. What is definition of a suburban center?
In the glossary for the comprehensive plan, I'm paraphrasing, but a suburban center is identified as an employment center, and it goes on to recognize that that suburban centers are also evolving to not only be employment centers but also be mixed-use centers. If you think about some of the things you talked about in the past, you talked about having a mini mosaic here. Well, Merrifield isn't a community business center. Merrifield is another suburban center.
Okay.
You think about all the employment, the type of employment that was there before, now it's becoming a place where people live, where people play, where people, wine and dine, and do fun things. Yeah.
So what are the other ones? So you said Merrifield, was it Vienna? All this up there?
For suburban centers, you have, you have Lorton, Lorton and Spring Hill, Flint Hill. Lorton and Flint Hill are the only 2 suburban centers that don't have comprehensive plan recommendations for a central area, for a center. There are some town center recommendations for Lorton, but you see where the town center is. It's not a big enough area really. And when you start looking at a center, I think what the consultants are looking at is creating a center specifically around 4 different nodes of significant nodes of activity, at the north end. So that.
I was just asking, what are the other ones like for us to compare them to?
Yeah.
The other purple ones.
So
You got Mosaic, I'm assuming it's this one, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then Vienna.
yes,
Yeah.
where you up north where you have the metro station, that like kind of in the center, that's Merrifield, Dunmore.
Right.
And then
Fair Oaks is a good one.
Fair Oaks is to the east, to the west, I'm sorry. And then Flint Hill is really tiny. You can't really see it, like the colors don't really show. So, but it's almost it's a little bit more than halfway from Merrifield over to Fairfax.
That's what we should be striving for.
Well,
It's like a model.
those are different suburban centers. You really don't have to look at any of them as a model because what the vision is trying to do is kind of pick up on what you've done with the guided vision principles. And that would be to kind of create a context sensitive area, an area that's, you know, it recognizes who the people are who live here, what the unique places are, and then you want to build your vision around what's unique about Lorton, and then that takes off, and that'll take off in what we do when we create a plan.
Steve, you can go back to the map,
Mhm.
and the map on the left. So going back to the bottom left, does that also include the RV storage and parking?
No, the RV,
It's a little high.
yeah, the RV storage and parking area is,
So we get to put a circle.
they haven't yet,
around
they haven't yet.
it. I got one more.
They're looking at that, they're actually trying to get in contact with the owners of a lot of the properties in there, in that area. And they want to do interviews with them just to see what their outlook is. But
So that means both sides of the highway?
That's what Lynn was mentioning before, on Route 1, on the other side of Mesa next side, there was a short depth parcel that is industrial, and then it really transitions quickly. And so we want to protect that side, we don't want to put some
the culture.
those things on that side, on the Colchester side.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody has any problem with doing anything in those industrial areas, but
Right.
just right behind them, it transitions hard in the
Right.
comprehensive plan and the zoning there to R1, to the stuff that fronts Colchester.
And the sanitary sewer service that go that far, you see.
Right, so just to give everybody, I think, a clear idea of the sewer service area, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. The sewer service area, all the way down Route 1, is only on the west side, okay? And it includes the frontage on the east side. So the townhouse development directly across the street is sewer service area because it fronts Route 1, as is Mason's Passage, as is the next development there. But all those, because they front Route 1, are included in the sewer service area that technically ends at. So basically, everybody's like, hey, frontage Route 1. So develop the north side.
I think I'd just like to pause on some of these issues to make sure we're all on the same page and nobody has any other wild ideas. I think what Linwood is saying, what Tim is saying is that, you know, there are certain areas within our little study area there that are on the table, but it could, to the west of Route 1, you're maybe looking at, you know, up to 100 feet or where that R1, you know, or that industrial ends, and then anything else to the east of it, it's not going to be discussed or talked about.
What's significantly more than 100 feet, but that's generally the
Yeah,
frontage.
The frontage of Route 1. Does anybody else have any other ideas or any concerns about making that statement of leaving that off?
I mean, if the RV, on that west side, right? You have to look heavily because it's dead, you get traffic and it's dangerous there. You got these big trucks making a left, right? So if you make that an area of a place, right, you got more traffic turning in, so that's how.
But one thing for you to think about too, though, is the BRT.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and that's something I think why Supervisor Stewart, when he met with the consultants, he made it abundantly clear that he wants us to look at that. So that's why I said there's probably gonna be a circle there later.
I think it's also helpful to know that Biggs Industries has been.
Because that's a major
That's a big piece.
It's a big piece where they do recycle, metal recycling.
Well, I think that was one of the key pieces to not getting that sewer also, because they would reach it. Because I think the preferred concept to sewer that area is gravity down there on the track to the bottom of the hill where the AAA used to be, and then it pumps back to the top, right by.
So if you
And
have.
I was approached about it, so
So-
Maybe what?
it's place.
So if I could take off on a minute, one of the things perhaps we might want to ask the consultants to do on each of the land use projections is the overlay for BRT. And one of the interesting kind of, not kind of quandary or conundrum, but it's, I don't know how to help, that the initial studies for BRT projected Lortonians would be going north on Route 1 to shop, which is really opposite. If you would take an informal survey here, how many people would do that on a regular basis versus going south to Woodbridge, going west to Springfield, and that be a more preferred shop. So I think there's part of that we need to kind of embed so that we know and not make false determinations based on it.
Well, but I think what you have to do when you start thinking about your vision statement, you have to think about a lot of the things, a lot of the assumptions that have been made about one, according to the original market study that didn't go farther, is based on the current comprehensive plan. So your vision is gonna talk to us about what we need to look to for the new comprehensive plan. So that's the big thing that you're doing right now. That's where we are.
That's good to know. In my talks with MVCCA people, that they're concerned the depth into residential as BRT goes up north and how far that would be planned in, especially road intersections and things like that. A lot of that original comprehensive plan stuff is being moved to the side in order to make the BRT happen. When you start talking 6-lane wide roads to be able to enter and have deceleration lanes, et cetera, you are encroaching into certain residential area and neighborhoods. So I don't know that we're going to be able to make the hard, fast, chiseled and hard jello statement that where that frontage is right now on Route 1 will always remain like that. Because I think that's part of that whole comprehensive land and transportation effort that BRT existed. So, I mean, that's just, and the Davis piece, thank you for sharing that. Could be a huge game changer.
Surprised us.
Suggest as we move through this process, BRT really ended before it got down to work. That's the way it was approved and planned and everything. That's the way, I think, from the PDOT and FCDOT perspective, that's how it's being designed. So it may be useful to do some research to find out just what the probabilities and possibilities are of continuing that, or whether you would do something.
When you look across the river though, back to North Woodbridge, a big part of their plan and their intensification plan is this idea that BRT is gonna come all the way down the wood.
Yeah.
So,
And we, it's my understanding, looking at those plans, although this is 2-year-old information, is the lane changeover from outside to inside will happen on Lorton land. It's not going to happen on the Woodbridge side. So as soon as you come across the bridge, you're going to have to use up land and space in order to readjust the lanes, because Woodbridge, it's on the outside, in Fairfax, it's on the inside.
I'll have to look back at the VDRPT study, but I think the VDRPT study actually recommends it to go to the outside lanes in Lorton when it hits Lorton. So that's
So it'll be outside lane in Lorton and then have to go inside by the time it goes north of Fort Belvoir?
that's what the recommendation is. So
Oh, that was new. Thank you. I learned something.
Where's the Woodbridge Cemetery?
just across the aquafarm.
Like where that restaurant is? Seafood place?
You know where the you know the new apartments are in the old auto dealership, right there at that intersection. So,
The food line.
Walter and I are not remembering it that way.
I don't remember the straight end.
I remember they're down the middle also.
I was down the middle, and the reason I asked is we were looking at that land adjacent to Furnace Road, Fernandez Road, and the business center, and how the land along the RV park, et cetera, and that, as well as an identified third line rail coming south on Springfield, whether there would be a siding.
And FCDOT will be coming next month, I think.
Perfect.
So we'll make sure that we escalate that question to them, because when I heard it was outside, that's where I heard it from. And
Because our station design would have to be completely different, and we've been asked to be involved in the station design and decor and everything else all the way up. And I appreciated the county doing that. I thought that was important so that there was a uniform look for all those stations all the way up. So, I mean, that would be completely different and completely different as far as engineering, space, room.
so we'll escalate that question to the team and make sure that they come.
As part of that, can you try to get an opinion from them as to why Prince William County desires to have it on the outside and not the inside like us? What the differences of opinion are from one jurisdiction to the other, from county to the other? It'd be interesting to know their rationale.
But that's too.
Yeah.
So back to the guiding vision principles, and I'm gonna try to wrap it up so y'all can keep talking and you know keep this good flow of information going. The vision statement is an evolution of the vision and principles, the guiding vision and principles, and it's going to bridge the gap to what happens in the with the comprehensive plan. The end goal with the vision statement that you'll talk through and you know edit it as you know, we'll be tracking your edits as you need to make them, is the vision statement that you adopt is actually going to reflect the guiding vision and principles as the first part of the plan that'll be recommended for adoption to the board of supervisors. So here's another look at the themes from the vision and principles. We have more slides if you want to switch to any of these themes at any time when you're having conversations, if you want to be reminded. But wrapping up, we're hoping that you see these 5 points, at least at the start of what you're looking at for adopting a community vision. So shaping an updated plan for the Lorton Suburban Center, guidance for future growth and development, a framework for applying innovative planning approaches for context-focused solutions. What's good for the Lorton community? Core community values, principles, and priorities related to land use and planning, and goals for promoting livability, accessibility, sustainability, and environmental stewardship. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to you all for more discussion, and I think we're going to show the points of the vision statement so we can make edits live as needed. And with that, welcome to the community's vision.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Just for the record.
We need to change this to the.
Put that on here.
Okay.
HDMI cable.
Okay.
That'll work.
We can put it on there.
So,
Or you can, yeah, but Graham's gonna have control.
Okay.
We started this conversation a long time ago. I think we do have everybody kind of work towards. And we don't, one thing that everybody's been asking for a long time is, let's get it down. The consultants to kind of bring this. Different community surveys and we have everybody in this room is bringing something from their area or backgrounds to the table. Okay, we identified, for instance, the map of the study area. Was on one of those. That changed. It's pretty much from the get-go, it's been the same. It tweaked a little bit. Yeah.
especially to the south, it got pushed off a little just.
This is really, I think, the first serious conversation we had south of Lorton. we talked about phase industries there in farther south. We start thinking of that as part of the region. We make one enough, we will annex part of Bridgewood.
My only concern in seeing it tonight, though, is I'm all for it. And again, my history is I have written myself comprehensive plan. And it's for the South American Federation to change that. So I'm interested in changing it. I hope we don't get too distracted by that or what we've been working on so far. I say,
see, and what's the context? I'm seeing it.
what's that?
What are we talking about?
I think you're talking about not getting too distracted by looking farther south.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I think, though, the time is probably appropriate because the vision, the area of inclusion is changing more than it ever has been. So-
It's time to include it, but I agree with Lynn in the standpoint that the focus, I think, where we're really going to create this walkable, livable, sort of environment, has to be at the core and not down that way. But it's about time that it get in the mix. But again, I think the focus of our attention should be.
The thing about the southern, up here, it's not a blank slate, as a lot of the statistics have shown, some of those maps that we work. That industrial down there, decide that you're going to change it from industrial, it all of a sudden does kind of.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is plan to overcome the main value of industrial. It will, and frankly, that would be a good thing. I mean, Route 1 goes from Key West to whatever the thing is in Maine or whatever, and right through our town, it's one of the least attractive places to drive. You know, it would be great if it looked better, but I don't want to become too distracted. This stuff in the core is a lot harder. It's going to take a lot more thought than that sort of thing.
Well, that's a good kind of starting point of looking at the map, and we have kind of identified, I believe, the center area to be kind of between Silverbrook Road and Road 1. Correct. So, Christine, as you're a member of our community, you have to chime in. The core area that we're looking for, the principal core area, the reason kind of this kind of kicked off was a need to create a center of Lorton, a heart of Lorton, an identity of Lorton. When you arrive here, you would say, this is Lorton's town center. This is the center. People that live near me are very far from Linwood and Tim. And to create that center or principal area of study that we really would like the consultant to focus on. Not that any of these others will be included in conversations down the line somewhere. That principal focus area, between Silverbrook Road and Lorton Road and Route 1.
I consider some street.
Yeah, I mean, really, guys. It is. I would just say, sorry, I don't mean to chime in and call on this one.
You're supposed to.
But as long as we're off like that, it needs to be like walkable. Like, remember we talking about like road diet and all that? I think it's too big of an area to say we want to be walkable. Definitely the town center. So for green offshoot. And I thought about like getting together, get back in the wood.
I'm trying to gauge the between Silverbrook Road and Lorton Road because Silverbrook, is running north and south, right? And Lorton east to west, and Lorton Road east to west. So are you saying that demarcation, Silverbrook, and the intersection between Lorton Road and then down Lorton Road to Route 1?
So you got Route 1 and Silverbrook Road.
So you have an H.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the boundary lots. That's Overbrook, one part of it here.
That's-
It could be kind of long, but most of it is along Lorton Road, bounded by Route 1 and Silver.
You don't go any further, east of Route 1. And you don't go really any further west of Silverbrook Road. Yeah, between Silverbrook and Lorton Market Street, there's a lot of, there's 95 and train tracks.
It's not, it's that.
There's not a lot there.
It's pretty.
I think in the conversation we've had before, we extended it kind of out to Silverbrook Road, just to include some parcels in there, but you're really talking about kind of a 95.
I'm passing a map up, we're gonna try to show it on the screen also. Silverbrook, the intersection of Lorton Road and Silverbrook is in the study area.
But it's a little tip.
Just that little, yeah.
Okay.
Because then you move into Laurelville, outside of the study area into Laurelville.
Right. So, ready?
Rephrase the question.
So it's that, we're trying to make sure we're in consensus.
Oh, yeah.
This for study area.
I'm okay with that. Yes.
I think that's what we could all be talking about, yes.
Or you do. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
So you're talking about just making sure we're identifying that core study area, and that as we've gone around, it's kind of on the western edge, thinking of the H, as when you kind of through it, is Silverbrook Road, and down the Lord Road corridor to Route 1.
Along here, this little pink, the inside of pink.
Yes. I mean, the
Yeah.
Silverbrook is probably the western edge of the
Yeah.
area, and then straight down here.
Yeah, that was.
One little, this is not important for the reasons I'll say, but in the extreme southern end of it, I think it actually goes too far east because it incorporates some of the town of Colchester, which is extremely.
The terminating.
I'm talking about the extreme southern end.
We're not talking about that.
Yes,
Just asking about-
if you're coming down Lorton Road, right, from Silverbrook, you dead end at Route 1. Route 1, where the ball breaks is.
Right.
I'm sorry, I
This
missed something.
He's saying that it will be focused only here, and we won't look down to include that as a city
Oh,
center
okay,
part.
I thought we were
It's
discussing this whole
part.
thing in the map that just got pulled out. Okay. no.
New area isn't included that, I mean, is like some of the Pike Road up, right above. You don't have side, oh, I guess it is a little bit. Like this area is really, not walkable. So I don't know what they wanted to do with that
Yeah.
area.
So that is included in the space, per se. I think what we're questioning right now is that four area.
Oh, okay, for development, okay, yeah.
It's not excluded, we're not taking this map and shrinking it down. What we're just saying is where's that four area we want to try and focus on. And so the discussions that I think we've all had is that it's along Lorton Road,
Yep.
north and south of it, a block. But it's somewhere terminating at the most western boundary possible would be Silverbrook,
Mhm.
and obviously Route 1 and
Mhm.
Route 1 and Lorton Road. But you're good.
You're making sure.
You just you may later on decide to provide some commentary for other stuff, just for some. And that's fine, it doesn't have to be as detailed, but I think the good point has been made that the uses there, they potentially change, and kind of think of them as forever, because they've been there forever. But they may change, and it may be worth providing some commentary in general terms that connects it to the things that you're focusing on.
I mean, it's something that, I mean, it's big news. What's been said. That Davis Industries is doing, because we have always been told that that is so wildly profitable that it is never going anywhere, because they don't have any place else to put it, and they want can't imagine that it's not a total environmental. But,
For 50 years, it will clean as it
I think the phrase is half.
But it is, those who serve on the land use committee, you know, you want to offer a bit of provision in the plan to say, you know, prior to have that in your back pocket, as we talked about before, to pull it out and say, that's not what the community officials for that.
and
That area.
especially with staff's position, I mean, oh, we don't have enough area, no, we're not. We heard that in the last couple of months in different areas, and stuff like that. So anyway, this is all like, this is a very fresh discussion about that.
I've always thought only that area, and I remain committed to looking at the stream bed along that side, looking at the Aquitaine Creek as a walkable and connecting process for at least two of those major pieces. And that's why I guess I was stopped when that one parcel that I asked about in the Oval, of which we were told, don't even think about touching it, because it was supposedly there were plants in there that existed only in Southwest Virginia or Southeast Virginia, and highly sensitive, et cetera, because we looked at that site for the community center. And we were hard and heavy on that, and wanting to know a lot more about it, and Seth came back very strongly saying, you can't even think about, we couldn't even think about a path alongside the creek because of the economic or ecological sensitivity. So to see that we would be able to do that opens that whole area up. Completely opens that whole area up. But I think we also have to put on the table then Lorton Station Elementary School, the location of that, is that optimal? Is that an optimal location site at this time? And because that is a hugely developable place as well, and something that we might want to just put up front and look to the school board and see what else is available within. And I know we can't go further toward on Gumpson Road because of exactly the sewer situation, and I'm not sure what other land is available going farther away, because then it won't be serving the kids immediately in that community. But I mean, this is kind of, I use your word exciting, thank you, I'll use that, that this is kind of different. This is a different way to be looking at it. But I always thought only the shopping center along Marketplace and along those open areas along there. Was it Fairfax? Was it Fairfax? One person owns it.
Well, let's finish what we started. Don't get distracted by that, and hey, that's the next thing or something. Or the tail end of this one.
Just Rex has been reaching out to the different developers at the shopping centers. And they've asked us to provide them with any contacts we have with this along here. About it, you know, the different owners along here, the contacts that we do have, we will be provided. Sure, but we don't always, we don't always know when stuff like this is happening. The opportunity for somebody that knows that, or somebody that knows to say, you might want to look at this maybe a little differently.
It's a lot overnight.
It's an opportunity, I think, for the Federation to, it's not, it's a chamber. That's what it is.
But Tim, are they trying to sell or just sell the land?
Again, I don't know what. I was asked if I.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's just a little business. I don't know why they wouldn't sell it.
The land has greater value to the business.
How much valuable is it?
It's quite a bit, actually, there's 16 acres comes to mind, but I'm not sure that I sent it.
I'm still stuck on the south part. The question for staff is, would it be helpful to know what's coming north. By that I mean, what Prince William has, we already know about some large apartment complexes and other things. What are they anticipating for future growth? I think north, not along that line. That might make, probably find some planning commentary heading south from our side of this.
So the North Woodbridge small area plan is on one. Pretty have to have.
Residential.
Yeah.
And it's moving.
Yeah. That train is,
Across the street from us, they finished phase 2, 3, and behind us, front of us, they have 300 plus units under construction now. There's another 300 plus units that are sale at the moment. It's next to our building. Under contract, I think it's falling through, but it would be 500 or 600, units. And then none of that has the big place, which is, cold storage / that whole shop.
800 or something.
It's a big project.
As we look at planning for higher density in this area right now, they've already got it on their plan. We may want to see how that interacts and conflicts and what we need to do so that we're not a cut. We always worry about being a cut through going from north to south. We could now be a cut through going from south to north. So it's worth looking at how we plan to stop.
I think it's critical that we try to, as you said, make these walkable, streets walkable stuff so that they're not designed like VDOT would like it in terms of thinking, not at work, but thinking, how do people in Woodbridge get work and traffic? We don't want them. They are now because we've made it wide. If you look, like, 6 lanes across, and actually, it's not meant to be. It's a cut. And the same is true for Lorton Road on the other side to get to 23rd. It's not for our
Unfortunately, there's not any options to that, though. It kind of has to stay that.
plenty of options.
For what?
We could turn around and we've talked before about limit, those big wide open streets and try to make them a centerpiece down and make them.
Well, I understand how to choke them. I'm talking about the traffic that's going through there now has to go someplace. And that's why I'm saying that there's not good options.
It doesn't have to go, it has a place to go, it's on 95, but
Well, how about get Christine from home to work? Seriously.
What?
Get anybody that lives in Laurel Hill north on Route 1. But how do they do that without Lorton Road?
So I think also to your point, trying to limit those who go through will also cause an issue for those who are trying to get home.
With Lorton Road, if we focus our attention on Lorton Road, and we're building on Lorton Road, if we leave these as 6-lane divided highway that allows, cars running at 45 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour going through there, you're not going to make that walkable place. Walkable community. If the goals are to make this a walkable community, 45 mile an hour of this big zone just kills that. And it's kind of like what we have already with 95 for one.
Well, we've got a couple of options north
So, listen, I don't even go down that road at this point, because that's not really in the schedule that we're talking about.
But just a point, Route 1, 95, 123, they all go north-south. The only thing in our community that goes east-west is Lorton Road.
And I'm not suggesting we don't have yet mechanisms, I'm just saying they don't need to be a 6-lane, they're designed right now, not for community use. They're designed for I got you.
I would only say if we're going down that road, we need to think of options.
Okay.
for it.
Let's get back to the point here, because we didn't finish coming around the table on the first one. So I think we left off with that limit between Silverwood Road and Route 1 along Lorton Road, is that the prime corridor? Prime area focus that we're looking for the consultant to come back with a recommendation.
Clearly, the answer to that is yes, but, and this is exactly what we were just talking about. I'm not sure that Main Street can be Lorton Road. Just like the Fairfield, for example. Gallows Road is the main road, but the core to
That's all.
is adjacent to it. Also, down in Woodbridge, I'm sorry, the new, that's not the main street, it's off of the main road there. Sorry, yeah. Stonebridge is not on the main street, it's right, it's a block off or whatever. So clearly, yes, I gotta put a bullseye on it. It's right in the middle of Lorton Road.
Right.
But
There's a challenge.
there's a challenge.
Yeah.
We know that. It's going to be a challenge.
There are only going to be challenges, and
Yeah.
not just kind of writing out the language, but also then.
Yeah, we can all see. But I'd love to. I don't know. From Route 123, so that traffic can just go around us, not through us, and then Lorton Road. Core.
Yeah, once get to transportation portion of it, kind of next. So if we can all kind of stick to our discipline of walking around, please, it will make this a little easier to.
They're all related.
They are related, yeah, and I do like the spirited conversation, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak and speak for their experiences in the area.
Hey, Chairman, do you
Yes.
mind if I add one thing,
Yeah,
just a little bit of
go
context? This is just, when y'all are looking at this, this document that Stevens provided for you, vision statement. So when you look at it, where it starts off at the very top, with community vision and planning principles, I think it helped me kind of think about what this is actually going to turn into. This vision statement is going to be the opening, the introduction to the plan. So this is the first paragraphs and through a bulleted list of vision statements. So when I kind of started thinking about it that way, it kind of helps me kind of think about framing the entire plan. So I just kind of want to add that context as you guys are looking at it, reviewing it, and editing it. This is literally going to be the introduction to the plan. So I don't know if that helps kind of frame it for you all a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It does a lot.
The mixed use town, so the creative mixed use town center for suburban center east of Silverbrook Road, along Lorton Road, Lorton Station Boulevard, maybe terminating at Richmond Highway. With a second part of activity in the area along Richmond Highway, the southern gateway to the county near to the county, southern gateway, okay, southern gateway into the county?
To the county.
Into. Maybe on Plum River, and that's something that Supervisor Stork has kind of requested to be in the conversation. Is everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Discuss that portion of it. So in here somewhere, we'll never be able to find it. There was talk about kind of the through versus to when it comes to transportation. And a lot of it was, too much of it was through, or not enough of it was seemingly was to. The people are constantly coming through here and to here. I thought about 123 on the northern side, and it was strange to me, and it's still strange to me, at Workhouse Road. As you come down Workhouse Road, or turn onto Workhouse Road, I'm in the right lane. So as I'm coming down, and I get to the light on 123, and I'm making a right, the only people that make a right on 123 are people coming to my community of 85 homes. There's no other reason to make a right on 123. You would go straight down to Hose Road, or you would go straight down to Lorton Road, where it terminates there. Anybody else would not make a right. And as I come down there, any day of the week, I've got me making a right, and I've got probably 100 cars making a left. And it's because everybody sees it, right? Whether you live off the Silverbrook Road, whether you live off Lorton Road, you're coming through on Route 1 from north of us, heading south of us. You're coming down 95. Thankfully, we don't only see you until you bail off onto Lorton Road. And you're coming down, you're trying to get to places like Lake Ridge, and you're bailing onto Lorton Road, left on Workhouse, left on 123, right on Old Bridge Road, which one day, hopefully, they come up with something to do that. Because if you're ever trying to go to, you know, if you're coming down Lorton Road trying to get to the Home Depot in Woodbridge at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, good luck. I don't know about any of you, but if I don't make it there by 11:30, I'm just not going. We can do it on purpose store. It's somewhere, but I need that name. But those are, that is the through traffic that kind of, you know, embraces our area and just is a constant, you know, just passing through. And I think there's a difference that was talked about in here between a through street and a to street. How many people are using us as their destination? And it's really at the moment just us. But yet we're still stuck behind people who are passing through. And I guess if my choice is if I want to get stuck behind somebody, I'd rather it be Wendy than Joe who lives in Woodbridge coming through my area. So, you know, anywhere I drive in this area, and I was out at my mother's in Leesburg over the weekend, and gosh, I mean, where is there no traffic? I don't know. I haven't found it in a long time. Route 28 is worse than 123. It is an absolute racetrack. I'm doing 75 and people are blowing by me like I'm not even moving.
Welcome to 28. For
Right.
the special taxing district to make all of those changes in the highway.
Right.
But they passed.
So, you know, in looking at the corridor in our kind of central area, it seems to serve people coming through our area, and the other person that normally serves, and I saw this coming on 95, there was like 8 cars pulled over on 95 North, and they all had Florida license plates. And they're just kind of sitting at the exit there, and you guys are all waiting to kind of get together so you can go wherever you're kind of going over there. But it seems to serve mostly people not in our area and you know, I guess I'd just like to go around and get some opinion of, you know, in our central area, as we talk about, you know, we kind of identified that core area. And we talk about walkability. And so how do we kind of bridge the gap here between, you know, we've had a constant discussion at the federation level. We're trying to get Amtrak to get people off of Lorton Road. You clog up the street every single day, at the same time every day. And it doesn't serve the local residents. We don't reap the benefit. So, Christine. What do you think the transportation looks like in that core area between Silverbrook Road and Lorton and Route 1 along the Lorton Road kind of, you know, corridor area? It's a 6-lane road that currently serves. Maybe I'm wrong. In my opinion, I look at it and say it serves Amtrak and it serves people that are passing through. And it's hard to imagine as we walk down there with the consultant and the group to consider that currently a walkable area. It is kind of, you know, there's dirt, there's rocks, and it's packed. And people are kind of blown through. It's not somewhere that I would desire to go walk.
Well, the crazy thing is, you know, they like Lorton Road on the other side of Silverbrook. They learned it, but I love walking all that half. I really like that half all the time. So, yeah, taking that and moving it down, but also.
You're talking about on the northern side, like past the Lorton Valley?
That's our.
Yes, I mean, people, you see people walking, riding bikes all the time.
Yeah. I walked it.
We talk about too, in like the Kentucky area, is how do we, bring art, how do we improve the landscaping, how do we bring the streetscape, how do we bring in, like a whole, basically, beautification from Silver down to, what kind of beautification can we do?
And would that change the traffic situation?
I don't think it would change the traffic, but I think people would get friendlier. It's really hard. You should be soft. Yeah, through there.
I agree with, Christine, update the streetscape. And I also agree with, Tim in regards to, widening the medium that runs, in the middle of a Lorton Road, because if you widen that medium and put trees in it.
Is that sorry, I'm having a mental block, like, is it just a concrete, like
Yes.
3 foot?
Well, it's a small strip, I think it's from Amistad to actually, Lorton Market
Yeah,
Street.
yeah.
Where it's a pretty narrow, strip
Yeah.
of weeds, it's not even grass, it's weeds, it's like corn. But if they ran, if we had a nice sized medium, probably from, I would say, Amistad, because you really can't do it, from Route 1 to Amistad.
Right.
Because it's a turning lane there, you could probably put a small,
Yeah.
nice size strip there,
Yeah.
but run it down, put some, trees or maybe some big pots with plants in the middle
Yeah.
to encourage people to slow down and take a look at the area. And then again, you have, homes that are very mature on the, south side of, Lorton Road. So some kind of way incentivize them to, update that property or just keep it up, keep it mowed and manicured, but that's a personal, preference, but other than that, we as a county have to sweep up all the gravel that the trucks make. It's a lot of gravel, it's a lot of dirt. Lorton Road, is actually on the, plan to be, resurfaced this year, correct?
No, not on the VDOT plan.
It's not on the VDOT plan, I thought it was on
Look
the
at the
VDOT
VDOT
plan.
Yes, it is.
I thought
It
it was
is
on the
that
VDOT
area.
plan.
there.
Right, because
Oh.
we've been neglected for the past
See?
couple of years, but
Can't be good
changes
for
such
brain.
as that, and if we even take it to the underpass at, 95, I believe that's a state responsibility, correct? If we can brighten up the underpass, clean up the underpass, coming from Texas, the highways in Texas are really nice. They're done up really nice, you get some lights up under there, have some art or something to encourage people that it's a safe place to walk through. Especially when you have kids going, to high school, whatever. Those are just some of the recommendations that I would have to, to improve, the aesthetics of Lorton Road.
It has a psychological effect.
It does.
This is a town, slow down.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So-
just like the broken window
Right,
effect in the community. If you see a broken window, then people think it's okay to throw trash and you don't have to mow the lawn,
This is good, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
This is good stuff.
Correct.
Yeah, right now you drive through and there's nothing looking
Yes.
left and right to make you think you couldn't do anything but speed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Make it look less like a freeway.
That's it.
I would kind of echo Wendy's, take it a little further. That area has people who walk on, but and it's actually. They go to the shopping. But no easy cross. The line is so big, and that if you had a median with some trees in it, you could then cross. There's just not much of a way to get across, so it just becomes another big divide, which, as you can see, we already have every road going north to the south. This would just is a big, another divide that cuts us east and west. So I think, and I've heard most planners talk about two things. One, visually bringing, as a visual aspect, you bring the development pieces up towards the front of the roads, close, and then you bring the trees that give you stuff, so it pulls your vision in more like this, and you're more likely to go 25 miles an hour, not 45 miles an hour. And, and so I think that's the critical piece is, let's make these roads, the roads that we use in our community, that, and not just as a road of travel, but roads and walkability so that we can use and do all the stuff here in our own community and be able to walk around it and not have to drive everywhere. Go over there, park someplace, and then be able to walk to the store. Walk to, whatever.
I thought I crossed it a long time, crossing from Lorton, Station Boulevard, I guess over to Princeton Shopping Center is probably not a pleasurable experience.
It's not at all.
None of those areas are
Dangerous.
designed very well.
It
Well,
is, yeah.
You get about 26 seconds.
It's not
Yeah,
long enough.
yeah.
And then the people are making rights. I mean, it's just, and the lasers are a major problem.
Yeah.
So we have to find a solution to that. I mean, the lasers, there, we get so many on the Station Boulevard. I mean, we've already had a death on our street. And we had VDOT, we were in those meetings, there to try and slow them and get like raised pedestrian. We're gonna have the same problem if we really, and I don't want to speak out of turn. So I just think it needs to be amped up. I mean, I'm all for the beautification, but that's not enough. You know, we have to address these lasers, and I don't know when 95 is gonna improve around Occoquan, but it is adversely impacting us.
I think they're opening the extension in like a couple of weeks. So,
First.
Oh, it's in the regular lanes. I
First
think
of what?
that's our problem, not the express.
yeah.
It's that, you know, that bridge, how it all goes from, it's just, it affects us
Yeah,
and our livability.
and I think that's part of what we're discussing is reclaiming our roads.
Right.
Like
It's-
for the, put a name on it.
It's more than streetscape, I think.
What was the question? So the course, we've identified kind of our core corridor, right? And so in thinking of like reclaiming our roads and reclaiming kind of that area, making it walkable and you know, making it a place where you would go and you would park your car and you would kind of, you know, be able to, you know, still get across it, but make it a Lorton Road and not a Woodbridge, you know, area, you know, kind of road. As Wendy hit on it, and Cindy hit on a really couple of good points, you know, putting a median, you know, that meant something down Lorton Road that looked like it could have, you can make it wider, you can put some landscaping, some trees, some signage about things that have been discussed, some art identifiable in this area, ability to cross it without taking your life into your hands, an ability for those people who are flying down Lorton Road to be looking at it and saying, like, gosh, it looks like something's actually here, I better not just fly through this.
Yeah, it's interesting, because we've talked about it before, I mean, you have to make a decision whether or not you're gonna take lands away or not. Because if you really want to reclaim it, then you would take it as a way to slow it down, make it undesirable drive-through, which we were talking about before. Sure. I always been a big fan of bike lanes. I think those are helpful with that. That assumes you have something at either end of the corridor that people want to go to. Yeah. Just draw your attention and all the stuff you're talking about. It's functional, but-
And bikes are more usable in many ways nowadays because just having a.
We're not civil anymore.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, it's like a little motorcycle, it's like a little moped, and whether it's that way or you're getting a little Uber delivery.
Right.
On one of those little robot carriers, or you're on a scooter, or you're on whatever, there's so many different things that will be there that all really are not cars, right?
Right,
And therefore, therefore they need to be part of it.
Yeah, and so like, talking about this corridor, I think in terms of bikes and that sort of thing, you're very close to where these dots are all together. Could have to be already, I mean, because people do use that station, it's a fair amount of ownership, so tied in there or whatever. So that would, I guess, be my suggestion.
It is, I was thinking about it kind of, get going through the area, but if you're coming from like where you live, trying to bike, even leaving the area, if you were to leave there going, kind of back to your home, the ability to get on a bike and go through and then continue on Lorton Road, past Lorton Valley, up there is a really great area to bike through.
Yeah.
But as you come into the center, you start tightening your helmet strap. Kind of thing, that, it would be nice to include that, all the way down to Silver Road, where then kind of, so that's a great tip.
So I would concur with everyone who said these prior to me. I am in Lorton Valley, so leaving and going west is the more desirable walking path. I have tried to go east to actually run, to actually, get some exercise and run errands to get to the post office. Everything that Wendy said, I echo, the lighting, the trash, the uneven sidewalks, crossing the street is a video game. I'm also one that's not fortunate enough to be able to work from home, so I commute in every day. Plus basketball on the weekends, so I'm always commuting.
Are you 95?
I am 123.
Is your 123?
123, I go to 100.
Okay.
So we've been out on going up on the ground. So when we started the conversation to talk about all the traffic that goes to try to get the overbridge, I get it. That's not in the area of concern. I will say what I do like is I like how they widen that road. They gave the walking path. So some examples. I also like how they've been doing improvements where they have the signs where you can cross. It would be nice if they had the stripping to let people know, illuminating signs when you cross. I know that's not in the area, but these are examples of what we can do to improve. That as it gets darker, you don't have to look at the person trying to walk home from the 7-Eleven. So even on the other side in the focus area, I do have some commuter concerns. I'll keep my ears open about, and I know the ways are great. I'm a wazer, so I like to tell you, police is coming.
That's okay.
They're trapped. It's the understanding that there's an opportunity, right? So the people are bailing off of 95. It's that problem. You gotta bring that up every meeting. Figure out why between Lorton and 123, the bottleneck happens. Because if I'm trying to go to Home Depot, Springfield, Woodbridge, I'm hitting ways first.
Right.
To figure out which best way to go. And many times the best way to go is probably down your area, not to just get on 95, but over your area, go to Overbridge, don't get on 95 at all.
Right. Yeah.
So I say it's an opportunity because once we start figuring out where our core center is. Now we have people whose lasers, they're familiar with the neighborhood, they're gonna see the beautification, they're gonna wanna stop and shop or potentially become buyers, you know, economy, feed into our economy. So I do have some concerns if we start to try to shrink the streets, because I've been here since like 98, I've seen the smaller streets. What's that gonna look like? Because this is gonna add to my commute, but I think the focus is more on VDOT, I believe, to figuring out the issues with 95. Because people wouldn't bail if it did not bother them.
Amen.
So when they fix that, then we can do what we're doing with the beautification, et cetera. So, but I do feel danger walking, east. Yeah, and so it would be nice to be able to walk from my area to walk to Casa Tequila, to enjoy myself and then walk back. But you can't, I mean, it's, when it gets dark, street lights on, I'm not going to.
That's not, that you should be able to walk that.
Yeah.
You should be able to walk that.
You're not that far.
But I have no problem leaving my house and walking to Starbucks and walking back 5 miles.
To
Awesome.
the Giant, yeah. That's a way more desirable walk.
Yes, and the
You
incline
walk
is
farther
good.
that way than you go walking the other way.
And it's relaxing.
Yeah.
It's all been said. I mean, making it walkable, from Silverbrook, along Lorton Road to Route 1. You know, you shrink the streets and make it more boulevard. And have it where you widen the water, like you have done on the western side. So you make it in the lighting that, and it's funny, yesterday, coming 95, getting off 95, and get off Lorton, and coming down the Lorton exit, and then there's this tiny sign that says Lorton something, and there's some cushions that's rolling over it. Whatever, that should be illuminated. If it's not gonna be larger, at least have some light shot. But then we have to be careful with Lorton Road. If you shrink it, the wazers would fly through. So
Do that.
So you gotta, we're gonna get some. And then the last thing I'll say is every time here in Fairfax County, we need more question. Across, especially the VRE getting from more market. But I totally agree with everything.
One thing I just kind of,
Alibi, I think someone said it earlier, definitely the, Amtrak. That is a issue, especially I pay attention to it on the weekend, I'm not home during the workday, but on the weekend, that becomes very, very confusing.
Yeah.
And they should be required to invest in something to fix that.
yeah, I pulled up a map a couple of days ago, and it's like, you don't own the land, you have land back there. Like, can you move people in circles back there somehow?
So it calls back up.
Yes, all the way down,
To the
you know.
school, to the
elementary school. And
Yeah.
often when we had the principal of the elementary school, he was kind of saying it, people kind of go to that street where the elementary school is, and then they pass the elementary school, blocking the buses from getting into that elementary school. So there's got to be a way to take those cars off of Lorton Road. You've got land back there, you just need to kind of do something.
Yeah,
I've been studying it. It's not done enough far enough yet.
So we did a tour that day. I noticed that the checkpoint very close.
Yes.
To what was, so the checkpoint, when they're checking cars in. For like moving around, they get to.
There's land available back there, I think, to do something. But I completely agree, you've got it. But the thing I kind of wrote down was to not necessarily shrink Lorton Road, but to reclaim it and slow it down. And I think everybody's chimed in with some suggestions of bikeability, widening the median zone, doesn't necessarily mean you're losing lanes, but you're making it look more like this is a residential road and not a pass-through road. Because that's exactly what it looks like. That's a good neck hurt.
Next over here.
There we go.
All right. I'm gonna echo, everybody's already said so much. I'm just gonna add in, I love the bike lanes idea. I'm a big biker, I can't bike on the other side. I don't like the current bike lanes. You feel like your life is in your hands,
I meant like partitions.
Yeah, like partitioned, like they have in New York City or Barcelona, and then that's shared too, like Tim said, with motorized bikes and with, that are wide, that would be lovely if we could have that. And then, I brought up the Amtrak as well, just that you did too, it's a major problem, even during the week, especially in the winter months. And then I always say this, and I really do think there is opportunities. If from New Jersey, if you say, do you know Fairfax County? Honestly, people always say they don't. But if you said, do you know what, you would say, yeah, I know the auto train. So why don't we have a Virginia point of entry and get some tourist money here to make it look pretty? Because we are a huge area. I mean, gosh, that little tiny hotel is one of the biggest grossing hotels. So why aren't we taking advantage of that? And then I was just gonna say, again, the consideration of tourists. How do we keep our little area going? We don't have a lot of massive development. Maybe it's bringing in with rich people, but we also have people that are coming in to use the Amtrak. And we are gonna have ski people and all these things, and we have a lot of other assets around. I think it would be interesting to see a marketing plan in that way. Everybody else mentioned the lighting's unsafe. I don't know, I heard from the Lorton Station Boulevard, we do have a big green thing. It's nice to walk along Lorton Station Boulevard, but we had somebody die. I mean, so this is not an answer, we need more. I mean, like, there has to be, I know you can't do raised walkways or somehow, like they do in Arlington, has to be there. And this has been my dream, and I don't know if it exists, but I'll mention it anyway. So like in ways, is there a way to like make an area off limits? Or like a do not travel? Or is every ways in It's got a great idea.
We're taking tourists 5 miles an hour with our waves that
I'm all for
I want to
it.
see you write that into the contract.
I actually thought it speeding 25 and down, but I'm not sure that that's the case. And the only reason I choose it is because when they changed the speed limit from 25 to 30 on Old Chester Road, the traffic 5 to 9 was a bad guy, where that was always a good shortcut home. Yeah, it's not a good shortcut home now. It's going.
So a general question, to anybody in the room, is there a welcome center in Fairfax? I've never traveled all over the country, I've seen them all over, where is it?
Well, the Workhouse Art Center was the welcome center for some. Is now. Such a welcome center that you put in some.
It's not, I mean, that's not, I mean, I do it right around the corner, I never do that.
I'm just not sure.
But I've never, I mean, traveling throughout the county, I don't think there's anything, but I don't think that it's. If you drive up and down 95, you get it, but it's like, I drove to Fort Walton Beach, Florida last summer. I passed the pools of it, so, after you get up to the exit as well. Not that I'm advocating for welcome center.
No, but
Just thinking of, this is very depending on what you're saying. You know, you are in Fairfax County, Fairfax County means something in this country.
It's a gateway to the national coverage, and right,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
And us being the entrance into Fairfax County, we should be a big deal too.
Yes, agreed.
You're the first person you see is here.
New Yorkers know us, not Fairfax.
Mr. Sergeant.
I think this is a two-part. I like all the ideas and concepts for what Lorton can be in the future. Tell us all how much you love this. I think you've got a two-part problem though, and I'm looking over all the from staff here. This really is two separate things. It's transportation and it's design and vision for the site. Because what we're looking at doing is adding to the density of this surrounding area. That's more people. I think your transportation issues have to be almost a priority to solve, both north and south, and get some professional input here. And I think you need FCDOT. They need to bring in VDOT to see what we can do. Because we've talked about some of these ideas before, such as can we cut off north-south traffic, southbound traffic during rush hour on 95 so they can't cut through. Right now, the answer is no. So what other mitigation tools do we have? I think that's becoming more and more apparent that we really need professional transportation planning mitigation, both north and south, especially as we look at the development in Prince William. That's going to add more challenges heading north. As we all know what we're facing heading south. We know, we've all heard from VDOT's going to be doing something on these pinch points on 95 at some point in the future. I don't know. That will hopefully help mitigate the tremendous backups we have. But backups occur going north too. It's not as serious as, I don't think as dangerous as we see heading south. I do think we need something that pulls in transportation planning specialists to say, this is how you solve it. Because regardless of how beautiful you're going to turn Lorton, we can't address this issue. We got a real problem. It's, you want to make it walk a lot. I do too. It's wonderful. It's got so much potential from courthouse all the way down to around one, where we are. Tremendous potential. But I do think, and it's becoming more and more apparent, needs help, professional help to say, how do you stave off this traffic mess? What can we do to make it work? Because we can plan and try and make it as walkable in the central core of Lorton as we have. And as you're going to, you've got the potential. We need help. And I'll ask you guys, what do you think? Is that too much? Or I just think we need help because we also need to raise this awareness within the county and the surrounding region. This is a regional issue. So let me know what you think, letting us know what you think, because I think some transportation planning beyond the scope of this vision is necessary.
I think it's a fair point. I think, just trying to think about how we convert that into acceptable goal within our vision statement. How do we think about that, right? Because I think we are balancing. I think Graham's over here taking very careful notes.
Yeah.
And he's editing the document right now based on what he's hearing from you all. I think he's developed one additional statement in there that I think gets at the sort of boulevard conversation we've been talking about earlier. But what I'm hearing now too is that they're getting at that creates potentially other traffic problems. That's the I-95 blockage and all of that. So, I think what we're trying to think of is like how can we actually put that into that. So up on the screen you'll see where Grant has inserted a new bullet, and hopefully that is getting at what you guys are talking about. And I think we may need to think about putting in another bullet that gets it, recognizing that is a key goal as long as we are studying some of the traffic impacts that it has. So,
I would reiterate everything that Sam just mentioned, but would also say that, you know, these bullets here are intended to be kind of that positive statement of what Lorton wants to become in the future. And so all of these are going to become things that we study in greater detail to figure out how could we do a local serving boulevard. I don't think I have the answer to this right this second, but to your question of, you know, if you slow down traffic on Lorton Road, what does that do in terms of, you know, kind of the regional network? That's what we'll need to study. And we'll need to go back to DOT and consultants, DOT, and talk to them about what is the regional impact, because it might not be something that you ultimately want to get once we understand the broader implications. So I would say that yes, we should look at that. We will look at that. Don't let that forestall your considerations of the vision and where you want things to go. It's easy to say we don't want to have, you know, less traffic or less cut through traffic. I would think about it the opposite way, which is what do we want? What do we positively want in terms of?
I think you're right. You want your vision statement to be a positive road forward in the future. I totally agree. I do think you need additional language beyond the vision statement to say, here are the traffic problems that inhibit the implementation of this vision. And, you know, this is what, from the professional standpoint, needs to be to address this to the extent feasible.
And there will be a time when we get into more specific language regarding traffic impacts. It's just the first set.
No, I agree.
Yeah. We'll have to do
You all read the screen, I mean, I'm having trouble reading it myself from here, but I can see Graham's computer that he's working on, so okay, good. I just want to make sure everybody takes a look at that, make sure that captures the conversation, at least as it comes to Lorton Road.
Yeah, I think that the very bullet, I know it says improve pedestrian comfort, but I want to make sure we're addressing the walkways, wider walkways to get through. And taking into account accessibility, like more time to get through.
Before we tweak it.
2 years ago, the Federation actually met with VDOT and SCDOT about ways. And we're told by VDOT that we could not restrict it because they had tried it in another location in Virginia, and actually almost came to suit in order to stop pedestrian past cars going through. And the legal beagles told them back out of it because there's no way we would win that because it has to do with transportation and national scope. Anyways, I don't necessarily believe that. I just don't know that we found yet that the hill that we wanted to land on. I like the idea of footbridges. I really do like the idea of footbridges, but I'd like the footbridges developed into something with an icon image of what Lorton is or is trying to be. And I think that means that isn't one footbridge at Lorton Marketplace and only one, I mean several. So when you're driving down through there, you do have the feeling that people are crossing over there and that you can't just go through there quickly. Rockingham County on I-81 has a very unique way of raising funds for their police department. They had VDOT change the speed limit on I-81 from 65 to 55. And it's only about 7 miles long. And then they dedicate police from Rockingham County to always be there 24/7 and pound you with very expensive tickets that people have paid for. And you go flying down there, and as the older son said, I think I've just been profiled. Yeah, you were, because you're a college kid in the middle of the day and you were doing 80 miles an hour, so profiled and stupid at the same time. I think there are ways to do that, but then it becomes an enforcement issue. And I think the 25 is laudable through there. I think that is. But VDOT has different rules about speed limits, as we found on 123, designated a high-speed urban corridor. So from the Occoquan Bridge all the way to the Fairfax County Parkway, it's 55. Oddly, it changes from 55 to 45 when you go through Fairfax Station and pass there, and then it drops to only 35 in front of Fairfax Country Club. I don't think those ideas are connected, Or maybe they are, because there are places where they write the rules to make certain things expedient. And I counted the same number of streets from the Occoquan River Bridge all the way to the Parkway. So I don't understand why we couldn't be 45 through there. So there are some rules that we will need the staff to help interpret that. I like the idea of the design of a logo, unifying the area, so people know when they see the walkways, when they see, I don't know, I'm not smart about design on that. And I also absolutely agree with Andrew's statement about if you're gonna have a bike lane, it's gotta be safe. Because they're just not, and I have to tell you, they have to be not able to be parked on. The bike lanes on South Run Road are an outstanding example of a great idea that is now got 9 panel trucks parked on. You're gonna swing back out into the traffic in order to use them. So I mean, if it's gonna be there, we gotta mean it. And last thing on the highway piece, underneath 95, just coming from California a couple weeks ago, those roads are gorgeous because they add design into the sound walls. You have Indian architecture and iconography. You have strains of the rock strata that are along the mountains there that they built into those walls. And then you're sitting there going, it's not a rusting aluminum wall on a la 95, but there are ways to make it look better. And I like Christine's idea about the art, because underneath there, and lighting, which Wendy now has mentioned 3 times, about lighting along there, that all of that improves and changes it. It does change it. And it's getting that.
Let's do that next month. That's easy. Let's call it Pleasure Story. So problem. Absolutely right. This is too out of the county. That's the state. Sucks. Very good traffic. There's a narrow- something. The traffic limiting thing. Love the tree state thing. You just heard me say I love the fast lighting, artwork, all that kind of stuff. Grass in the middle of the road, things that make it seem community so people have desire to slow down. I kind of personally draw a line at trying to limit the number of cars or anything. Fix the problems. And sure, I'm limit here's the thing. Sure, I'm limit our cars, but I still want to be able to get top highs. But I still want to be able to go through that corridor that we all recognize as a problem. Back to that root cause, but lots of great conversation here, great ideas. And I'm like, hey, let's do that underpass right now. That could be so cool, so fast, so easy. Lighting and artwork, people underneath. And frankly, just clean the clumps of dirt up and, you know.
So we're gonna run out of time here in a bit, and this is kind of long, but one thing in transportation I'll just throw out there that was brought up before is, we talked a lot about overpasses. I think at one point we brought up a kind of underpass along the creek, where the road goes over, that, you know, you can go over or under, right? And there's currently a bridge there, and perhaps the potential to walk along the creek, kind of area from there. The last thing, and it's kind of flowing, and at some point we need to give the consultant a bit of direction as to, you know, we've kind of really consolidated here tonight, kind of the, you know, where it's going to be in the core area. talking about transportation and the ability to get through that area. But the one thing we've always talked about, I think everybody's been kind of hungry to get to is, okay, here it all is, now what does it take? What does that kind of look like? Where are our little hotel pieces or our little, things, and there's a level of, I believe, consensus that nobody wants to go kind of above 6 stories. That would be an absolute max. And so I think at some point we need to tell the consultant, here are the kind of parameters of it, but we don't want to inhibit them too much. We want to kind of give them the ability to say, here's what everything's asking, everybody's been asking for. Bring forth, that this is what it's going to take, and we can have that conversation and tear that apart. But I think it would benefit us not to put too many inhibitors up front to try to direct them away from minimizing, that which we've kind of asked for. I think a lot of us can pretty much guess that it's going to take more than 500, new people, in the area. We don't want to add 50,000 people to the new area. We don't want to be Tyson's. We don't want to be, something that's too large, but we don't want to aim too low and have what happened in Lorton Town Center is that we didn't aim high enough and loud enough. So just going back to Wendy here, since Christina, you're up first. It's that, is that a fair statement to say, let's let the consultant, take what we have given them and come back with, what is it going to take? Without, inhibition at this point.
I think that's a fair statement because at this point, the SLEs, that are subject matter experts, this is what they do. So I believe we give them the autonomy to come back with some design ideas. Especially because we're dealing with such a disjointed area. They have the requisite expertise to provide some type of recommendations to us on how they can put it together and we can achieve, our vision through the guidance that they have.
This is a term we can do them all. However we want to do it.
Yeah, I just like to quickly go around and just make sure we're on the right track. Not restricting the consultant to bring us forth your ideas. We told you where it is, we told you what we want.
Starting from years. Needs. Then we can see if we can tolerate that, if the community can tolerate it. So the answer is, I can't do it. It's time to put it to you all. You guys come up with it. Tell me what it's going to take to make what it would do, what it would make, and then how it could possibly look. And then we can see if we can, that's something we can start.
I agree.
I've
Yeah.
talked about it, and I think I am in the same, everyone here, but just a little bit of clarity. When the email came out about bold, I guess I came up with a couple of these bold citizens that you have to pay parking, Washington Park, so bold that you overcome your schools, or bold so bold that you mock your community with. And I think the answer is obviously no. But we want to make sure that we plan enough to get the character that we want to support the assets that we want with a little bit of margin. Okay, but not, there's no reason for us to take double the density we need to accomplish the goals that, put a nice little buffer in there. But again, we don't want to be Washington Park. I think everybody agrees with that. So that's my only.
I guess our goal is to start start here, and let's see what they bring forth, and make sure we're looking for some sort of a vibrant community. And to then,
This is what we
tackle
think we
that.
need, but let's make sure, let's go here.
Absolutely, unfortunately.
But not to worry.
Mostly the goal is to make sure that we don't let the natural problems that exist, natural challenges, because we know we have a limited area, we know we have some challenges in it. We need to think slightly more, one of the worst things that happened in Lorton Road, not most people realize it, Lorton Road, they built Lorton Road up so high that Lorton Road now acts as a trap. So everything on one side on either side of that turned into more floodplain and being more shipper because they built them up really high. It now doesn't flow across. So we've got to fix some of the pieces that are creating the problem to begin with. We have issues like, as Lily said, we have a property that the county has that they traded for density, some development someplace else and said, oh, we'll give you this over here. They end up with.
Or they wrecked the environment somewhere else, so they gave us.
So they give it to us, now we have it, which is always good, it's been the word, is that we end up getting, the short end of that stick sometimes. So it's gonna require, the staff and the contractors to take a look and say, let's think outside of the normal box. And let's try and say, let's create that vision. Let's not let the challenges to conclude that vision from dominating it. Those are challenges that will have to be overcome and will obviously continue to be a challenge. We've got this.
But I'm back to Tim's point, which is I'm so on board with about the cut through traffic. What I said about 95, I would really like to see, aside from this task force, as a community, we start screaming at people out. We need solutions, we need solutions, we need solutions. And I can't imagine that we can't just on that issue. And frankly, I think it's a bigger issue for this task force. It's so bad. So bad. I'd just like to task staff with who should we reach out to, how should we form that, what, and maybe even conversation about also what delegates do we need to take as a task force to serve that. That's just so wonderful.
But I think we're out of time. Stop talking.
Do we have consensus on the next steps for the vision statement? I just want to make sure because for us as staff, as we work with the consultants going forward, it's going to be really important that we get this nailed down sooner rather than later. I'm not saying it has to be right now, but because this is really going to be our next step to start really starting to draft. So bring it back to you.
And to draft the concept that is going to go along with the vision and, with the plan.
Could you add under that red bullet there, about the possibility of walkovers along, Lorton Road?
Sure, we can.
And that concept?
We can definitely work on that. We need to touch base with SCDOT and DOT as well. To just talk about that. We'll put it in ink, but yes, we can definitely work with that.
When did they include it in everything?
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll touch base
Thank
with
you.
Yeah, improve, pedestrian crossing.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the objective, and how we get there would be,
You can work on
yeah.
it.
Because the other, that one's not so restrictive.
As I mentioned earlier, FCO, we're going to work with FCDOT. I think they are interested in coming back, kind of providing some updates. A recap of some of the stuff that you've seen before and how it's kind of coming into play with the consultants are working on the transportation study side of things. So we're definitely going to make sure that they know some of the questions that you've had, some of the areas of interest that you've looked at, and especially some of the areas of interest that we learned in supervisor store we look at. So we're going to work with them. I don't think it's going to be the next meeting, because the next meeting, consultants are coming back. They're going to talk a lot about the market, their work on advancing the market analysis, and also they may have some very rough, starts to some of the concepts we all look at. So you can, so you can react to things like height and things like that,
So if you all have anything in writing, I guess you need to get as far as the vision statement goes, you're gonna get it to the chairman, Firth, is that right? And you'll
Yeah,
You can email it around, as I'm talking, I wasn't reading, but I'm pretty sure you're looking at it, and, it's fairly accurate of what was discussed, and I think it was a pretty broad consensus.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still clear, there's no confusion for us.
We can email it around.
Oh,
I didn't look at me.
Yeah.
And
The response.
The next
Okay.
on May 8th. After SCDOT reached out to me, I threw out the idea of possibly doing another 2 weeks after that. So that would put us on 2 weeks to May 8th, and then 2 weeks to when SCDOT comes back, and that would also be around the time we want to come back. With the edits we've heard from you, with something hopefully that you'll all be very close to adopting, because once we get that adopted, that's the fuel in the rocket that we need. Yeah.
so you need to look at May 8th and then May 22.
May 8th and then May 27th.
Got it.
Meeting adjourned?
Sure, yeah. Yeah.